This video is brought to you by America First Insight. Help support the growing conservative movement by becoming a member today. And if you want to support this channel, you can also use the code REAL when becoming a member. Thank you and enjoy the video. Well, as most of you have probably heard by now, early in-person voting has just begun in the great state of New Jersey, and I really want to talk about the current state of the race as of now, because we're a couple weeks away from Election Day, and it's becoming a very close and very fascinating race by the day. We've been talking about this race for many months now, but I never really thought it would be this competitive and to a point where, hey, Jack Ciattarelli, while he's a strong candidate, I never thought he would be in this position to actually win. And to be clear, I'm not saying it's a guarantee that Republicans win the race. In fact, I still think as of now, Democrats are the very slight favorites because we are talking about New Jersey. This is not a far-right state or even a toss-up state. Though it's gotten closer, it still leans to the left. But as of now, the fact that we're talking about New Jersey potentially flipping is a serious possibility. If you're the Democrat Party, you're kind of panicking right now because you don't want this. You're expecting a blue wave next year, yet you're struggling in New Jersey, which I know it is a gubernatorial election. These things are different. I get that. But still, the state of New Jersey back in 2024, it still voted for Harris by 6%, not even. It voted for her by 5.9%, which was a pathetic showing. It really was. It came out of nowhere. Like, we were thinking there is a chance that Republicans could get New Jersey within 10 because New York City's right there. And everybody knew that that city is shifting so far to the right that you would think, okay, it should theoretically impact at least the northern half of the state. Not by as much as it did. And it was within 6%. It was a pathetic showing, but still, you would think it's a Democrat state still. You would think Jack Ciattarelli would not really have any chance, especially if this is going to be a blue tsunami. That's what Democrats have been saying for months now, that, 2025 and 2026, they're going to be historical blue waves, which that could still happen. But the fact that you're struggling in New Jersey should tell you everything. This is still a Democrat state. And Democrats, if they really want this magical historical blue wave next year, they should be doing fantastic in New Jersey. They should be up by 10, 15, 25 points, which some of the polls indicate they're by like 9, and we'll get to that in a second, but they're not consistently at that point. And in fact, most people will admit that this is going to be a close race. So where's the blue wave? And you would figure that Democrats would do even better in 2025 than 2026. And that's because, for starters, historically at least, these off-year elections like in 2025, 2027, not the midterms, but these other off-year elections, they tend to have even bigger swings to the opposite direction. That's usually what happens. And on top of that, turnout, at least on paper, should be lower than it will be in 2026. Now, it might be a little bit different because this is such a huge gubernatorial election in New Jersey and even Virginia, so it might be a little bit different this time around. But at least on paper, with it being lower turnout, that benefits Democrats because we've talked about this a bunch. But for those that don't get what I'm saying, the Republican Party is now the party of high turnout. They want as high of turnout they can possibly get because it helps them. They are now the party of low propensity voters. These voters, they don't usually vote in off-year elections. They might vote in a presidential election, but that's it. Democrats, meanwhile, they vote in everything now. They vote in every election, no matter what. And that's why this should be a Democrat sweep. This should not be close whatsoever. But it is. Now, early in-person voting, like I said, it just started. And we're not going to get the numbers for a couple of days, I don't think. But based on what people are saying on the ground as of now in New Jersey, it's sounding like Republican areas, they're voting. They're getting out and voting in record numbers. Now, again, early in-person voting and early voting in general, you have to be careful with it because it can be misleading. I understand that. We got to be very careful with early voting. I understand that absolutely. But at the same time, based on what we're hearing, The Democrat base, they're just not voting. They're not voting, while Republican areas, they're voting in huge amounts. Again, it can be very misleading. You should not predict everything based off of early voting. But even before early in-person voting, which again, we're not getting these numbers for a couple of days, it's been looking very bad for Dems in the state. Just look at this map right here. This is the early voting by township or whatever. And green is good and red is bad. And you might notice something very apparent. The Democrat parts of the state, namely the northern half of the state, they're not voting at all. But the more Republican parts of it, they're voting at much higher rates. Just look at the map compared to 2024. Like places like Newark and Jersey City, these are very Democrat areas, D plus 50, D plus 40, whatever. Well, they're just not voting at all. They're crashing and burning as we speak. The Republican areas, meanwhile, they're voting. And to be clear, there are some Democrat areas that are voting, but it's places like Camden, which is a bit more to the right than places like Essex County, as an example. So even the areas that are voting at higher rates, like Burlington, they're not as Democrat as, say, Newark is. And that's another problem. Even the Democrat areas that are voting, they're not as Democrat as the big ones are for the Democrat Party. You see the problem here? So they're already lagging behind where they should be. And Republicans, they're doing pretty good. They're doing pretty good in the early voting. This was before early in person. So it could get even worse. Which, again, anything can happen. We gotta be clear about that. Like, this is early voting. It can get wacky. I get that. So right now, though, it's clear the early voting, the turnout is not looking as good for Dems as it should be. And the polling is showing a very competitive race. You look at RCP right now, and it's D plus 4. Right now, D plus 4. The big thing is, Cheryl is below 50%. Now, there are finally a couple polls that have her at 50 or just above 50%. But here's a problem for her. Those polls, they are objectively awful pollsters. I mean, look at this. Fox News, they are awful. Don't let people fool you. Fox News is a bad pollster, not because they're a far-right pollster. No, it's actually the opposite. They overstate Democrats all the time. And by big margins, not a 1-point miss, by like 5, 6, 7 points. They suck. Rutgers, they tend to be better than Fox News, but that's not really saying much. Quinnipiac, everybody knows this. They are an awful pollster. They suck. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They might have gotten better post-election, maybe. In fact, 2024, they were actually a bit better. But still, they are a Democrat pollster. It's like these pollsters that have her at or above 50%, A, it's just barely above 50, and B, these pollsters suck. Meanwhile, the better pollsters like Qantas Insights, Emerson, Trafalgar, they had the race very close. Emerson tied, Qantas Insights, Cheryl +2, Trafalgar, Cheryl +1. They have a very close race. Meanwhile, the other pollsters, they have it, still bad for Dems, but not a complete, disaster where they might lose the race. So yeah, who am I going to trust more? Qantas Insights, Emerson, Trafalgar, even Rasmussen. They have it a bigger margin than others, but they have Cheryl only at 46. Or are you going to trust Fox News or Quinnipiac? I'm going to say, based on the track records, Trafalgar, Qantas Insights, Emerson, they tend to do a bit better than those other pollsters, but fine. You average it all out, she's not at 50. That's her other problem. You average out all these polls, she is not cracking 50%. She is currently at 48.1%. Compare that to 2021. Phil Murphy, he did crack 50% in the average. And even then, Trafalgar had him at 49%. So already you could tell the average was far more Democrat. Roughly 4 more points Democrat compared to now, okay? Well, the final margin was Murphy +2.5, 2.8. So there was a 5-point miss in the average back in 2021. They have Cheryl up by 4. The same pollsters on average have her up by 4%. You apply the same miss, and what do you get? Chitterelli plus 1. And these other pollsters like Rutgers, they had a 5-point miss in 2021. 5-point miss. You had Fairleigh Dickinson, which is a bad pollster, Murphy plus 9. Right now, they have her Cheryl plus 7. So you apply the same misses, these really bad pollsters, they have the race tied. Again, I'm not saying it's for sure going to happen where she's going to win or lose or whatever, but it's like, hey, wait a minute. The average is actually showing, if the same miss applies, a Chitterelli win and or a tied race. That's not good for Dems at all. Don't let them fool you. That is bad. That is pathetic. That's not what they needed. This is a awful showing for Dems, even if they win by 2 or 3. That is still not indicating a blue wave. Even a Cheryl plus 5 victory would still be an underperformance compared to 2024. Even D plus 7, that's not really a good showing either. If you're the Democrats, you want to be winning by 10, 15 points if you have this magical blue tsunami. If you're winning by 6 or 7 in a lower turnout governor election, that's not good. That is not what you need. You should be winning these races by 10, 15, 20 points. And by the way, at America First Insight, the current average, Cheryl's at 47. That's it. Chitterelli at 43.5. And so basically, Cheryl's up by 3.5%. And you notice the downward trend for her. In late May, she was at 51%. All right? In the middle of June, 49.8%. But it was a slow but steady decline in support for Cheryl. Chitterelli, meanwhile, he went up. Every single week, it was a consistent trend. He went up and up. And a couple months in August, went down or whatever because of one poll. But ever since then, it's clear. This race is tightened significantly. And Cheryl is below 50%. I mean, I don't know how to spin this for Dems that's somehow good. It's like, she is trending downwards. Chitterelli is slowly but surely going up. The early voting is indicating a potentially a good environment for Chitterelli. And Cheryl's not cracking 50. What's a positive here? Oh, Chitterelli's down by 3.5. Okay, those undecideds, if they break for Chitterelli, it's over. So, what's the positives here? Again, anything can happen. I'm not saying that Cheryl's going to lose by 20 or whatever. I still think she's a slight favorite. But if you have the same point miss as you did back in 2021, apply here. Cheryl would lose by about a point. Yeah. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.